I don't have to give you this gentleman's qualifications as an actor. I think he is probably considered by other actors and people in the entertainment profession as probably the greatest actor of our times for 30 years. Johnny Carson smiled knowing the man opposite him, America's biggest heartthrob, was living a total fiction. Carson knew the secrets of 9 specific guest explosive truths that could vaporize their careers instantly. In his final days, he finally revealed what he knew. The truth about Hollywood's golden age and the stars we thought we knew is far darker than anyone ever imagined. The double lives of Hollywood's kings. Let's start with the most shocking of all, Rock Hudson. You see, Hudson was the definition of masculine perfection for millions in the 1950s and 60s. He was tall, handsome, possessed an easy charm, and starred opposite legends like Doris Day. He was the ultimate heterosexual fantasy. The thing nobody tells you is that it was all an act, a complete fabrication. Johnny Carson knew it. He'd interview Hudson, the man women everywhere dreamed about, knowing his entire public life was a careful, calculated fiction designed to hide his true preferences. What many overlooked was the sheer pressure of this deception. Hudson appeared on The Tonight Show multiple times, and every single appearance was a tightrope walk. Carson knew Hudson was living a double life. It was an open secret in Hollywood, but exposure would have been devastating. Every interview was a delicate dance around the truth. This wasn't just about personal privacy. Hudson's agent, a man named Henry Wilson, had arranged his entire life. This included a lavender marriage to Wilson's own secretary, Phyllis Gates. Think about that, the studio manufactured a marriage just to stop the rumors. That arrangement lasted just 3 years, but it did its job, according to those close to Carson. The host found these studio-arranged marriages to be one of the most disturbing parts of the Hollywood machine. Johnny apparently described it as institutionalized lying. He wasn't judgmental about anyone's private life, but he was deeply troubled by the elaborate machinery designed to deceive the public. For a man who interviewed people for a living, being forced to take part in these fictions bothered him more than people knew. The tragic end to Hudson's story came in 1985 when he passed away from AIDS-related complications. His illness forced a public reckoning with the truth he had spent a lifetime hiding. Carson was, by all accounts, deeply affected. He felt Hudson had been trapped in a system that denied him the dignity of living his own life. But Hudson wasn't the only matinee idol playing a part. There was another whose striking good looks were both a blessing and a curse, Tyrone Power. Carson never got to interview Power, who passed away in 1958, but he heard all the stories from the Hollywood old-timers who were guests on his show. Power's entire career was built on his appeal to women. He was the swashbuckling star of The Mark of Zorro and Blood and Sand. Yet behind the scenes, he lived a completely separate, compartmentalized existence. What fascinated Johnny was this total split. By day, he was the ultimate heartthrob, the man whose face launched 1,000 fan clubs. By night, according to Hollywood insiders, he was seeking companionship that would have instantly destroyed the carefully built image. His marriages to 3 different women were the necessary cover. These relationships helped maintain the fiction of conventional heterosexuality that his career demanded. Carson often reflected on the sheer psychological complexity of these arrangements. These weren't just show marriages, they involved real emotions and resulted in children. The human reality was far more nuanced than simple deception. It just reflected the limited and, frankly, terrible options available to stars who didn't fit the mold. But not all secrets were about hidden partners. Some were about how stars even got their careers, how Hollywood really works. When you think of the ultimate rebel, you think of James Dean. He appeared in just 3 major films before his untimely passing in a car crash at age 24. But in those 3 roles, he became an enduring cultural icon. He was the quintessential troubled youth, the symbol of authenticity in a conformist era. But what many overlooked were the persistent rumors about how he got his start. Carson never interviewed Dean, but he heard the whispers from guests who knew. What disturbed him were the allegations that Dean had engaged in relationships with powerful men, specifically to advance his career. These rumors suggested that the young actor was pragmatically fluid, willing to use relationships with influential industry figures as a way to get ahead. To put it mildly, the rebel image didn't quite match the reality of a brutal system. The most persistent rumors centered on his relationship with director Rogers Brackett, who helped launch his career. Carson, according to his confidants, was careful not to judge Dean for these choices. He saw it as an indictment of a system that created such awful power imbalances. It was a system that forced talented young people into impossible corners, forcing them to commodify themselves just to get a chance to succeed. And then there was Dean's contemporary, the other great rebel, Marlon Brando. Brando changed acting. He was all about raw, naturalistic, brutal truth on screen. Carson interviewed Brando several times and found him uniquely challenging. Why? Because here was the man celebrated for uncompromising truth, who was simultaneously engaged in significant concealment about his own private life. Brando cultivated an image as a heterosexual ladies' man with highly publicized affairs and a series of marriages that produced numerous children. But Carson knew, as did many in Hollywood, that Brando's personal life was far more complex and fluid than his public image suggested. Brando himself became more open about it in his later years, but during the height of his fame, it was all hidden. Johnny would comment on the irony. Brando was celebrated as the man who stripped away artifice from performance. Yet in his personal life, he maintained significant fictions about who he really was. What many found fascinating was that the two actors who redefined American masculinity on screen, Brando and Dean, were both allegedly engaged in private lives that would have shocked the audiences who idolized them. But hiding alone was hard. The safest way, it seemed, was to hide in plain sight, often with a partner who was in on the secret. Partners in deception. You've heard of Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Their relationship stands as one of Hollywood's most celebrated love stories. A 26-year romance portrayed as the epitome of devotion. The thing is, Carson knew it was, well, more complicated. He had interviewed Hepburn multiple times and genuinely admired her. But he found it fascinating how thoroughly the public had embraced a narrative that contained, let's say, significant elements of fiction. According to Carson's private reflections, he believed their relationship was largely a mutually beneficial arrangement. Here's the breakdown. Tracy was a Catholic who wouldn't divorce his wife. This affair with Hepburn provided a socially acceptable explanation for his separation. And for Hepburn, an intensely independent woman, it offered a perfect reason why she remained unmarried, giving her the freedom to live largely as she pleased. What many overlooked is that Hepburn's closest and longest relationships were primarily with women. She lived with her alleged partner, Laura Harding, for many years and later had a decades-long relationship with Phyllis Wilburn. The public bought the romance, but Carson saw it as perhaps the most successful piece of myth-making in Hollywood history. But it gets even more complex. What about a marriage where both partners were hiding the same secret? Enter Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester. You know them, Laughton as the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Lanchester as the immortal Bride of Frankenstein. Their marriage lasted from 1929 until Laughton's passing in 1962. On the surface, it was one of Hollywood's most enduring unions. Carson found this one particularly fascinating. According to Hollywood insiders, both partners had same-gender preferences. Their marriage was essentially a double fake, a mutual cover story that protected both of their careers. Johnny interviewed Lanchester several times after Laughton's passing and found it remarkable how she honored their marriage while carefully avoiding any details that would contradict the official story. To put it mildly, it was a creative solution to an impossible problem. In an era where the truth meant career-ending trouble, they formed a supportive friendship that allowed both to thrive. But perhaps the most elaborate, heartbreaking fiction of all belonged to Raymond Burr. We know him as Perry Mason, the brilliant attorney who always found the truth. His authoritative presence made him one of television's most beloved figures. Carson interviewed Burr multiple times, and he later told friends it was a remarkable experience. Why? Because Burr had constructed an entirely fictional biography to hide his private life. Burr claimed to have been married 3 times. He invented a tragic backstory where his first wife and their son allegedly perished in a plane crash. He even spoke of military service that never happened. In reality, Burr lived for the last 35 years of his life with his partner, Robert Benavides, whom he met on the set of Perry Mason. Johnny apparently described it as interviewing a character rather than a person. He found it profoundly sad the ultimate truth seeker on TV was forced to live the ultimate lie, all because of the fear of what the truth would do. But some stars didn't hide. They bent the rules and dared the world to look. Secrets of the Sophisticates. Marlene Dietrich was different. She brought a European sophistication and an air of mystery to Hollywood that audiences found captivating. Carson interviewed her multiple times and had genuine admiration for her. He found it remarkable that she had managed to be relatively open about her fluid private life, even in an era where that was unthinkable. Unlike her American contemporaries, Dietrich made little effort to hide her preferences from industry insiders. She was married, yes, but she had well-documented affairs with both men and women. What impressed Johnny was Dietrich's flat-out refusal to be shamed. She developed a persona where her innate sophistication and European background created a space for her to live more authentically. Her androgynous style, the men's suits, the deep voice was part of this. She made her ambiguity part of her mystique, turning a potential career-ending vulnerability into a tantalizing strength. She was, as Carson saw it, hiding in plain sight. And finally, there's Cary Grant, the man who defined sophisticated masculinity for generations. He was the quintessential ladies' man, the star of countless romantic films. But Carson, like many in Hollywood, knew about Bachelor Hall for over a decade. Grant lived with fellow actor Randolph Scott, a rugged star known for westerns. The two shared a beach house, and they weren't exactly hiding. They posed for domestic photographs together that were published in fan magazines, photos showing them exercising, preparing meals, and relaxing at home. Today, we'd instantly recognize them as a couple. Back then, the studios managed to spin them as bachelor buddies just sharing expenses. Grant maintained his public image with an iron grip. He presented himself as the ultimate leading man, the dream of millions. And he protected this image through 5 separate marriages, all to women, all to keep the public narrative straight, to sell the fantasy. Now picture this. Johnny Carson is sitting at his desk. The lights are hot. Millions are watching. Cary Grant is on the couch, radiating that perfect, effortless charm. Carson found it completely surreal to interview him. He had to sit there, smile, and play the game. He had to discuss Grant's life, his wives, his Hollywood romances, all while knowing that the most significant loving relationship in Grant's life was very likely with another man. It was a performance inside a performance. Carson was watching a man play a character who was in turn playing a character for America. What most people watching at home never understood was that the Cary Grant persona was itself a total creation. It was a brilliant lifetime performance played by a man named Archibald Leach. Leach designed this character, this brand, to navigate a world that would never, ever accept his authentic self. It wasn't just a stage name, it was a suit of armor, a perfect mask. So what do we make of all this decades later? Is this just old Hollywood gossip? Are these just rumors, fun to whisper about? Or are we missing the key fundamental detail about how this all works? The thing is, Johnny Carson sat at the center of this universe for 30 years. He wasn't on the outside looking in. He was the inside. He saw the masks. He saw the cracks. He saw the terror in their eyes when the mask almost slipped. He wasn't just a host, he was a gatekeeper of secrets, a confessor, the vault where the truth was kept. People watching this today might wonder, did this all just happen back then? Is this just a story about the old days? Or is Hollywood still the same machine? What Carson confessed wasn't just gossip, it was a look into a system. A brutal machine designed to sell a fantasy. It sells that fantasy at any cost, even at the cost of the actors' real lives. These 9 stars, they weren't just actors. They weren't just rich and famous. They were survivors. They survived an era that demanded they live a total lie 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until the day they died. So was Carson right to keep these secrets, or was he part of the problem? Let us know below. Like and subscribe for more hidden truths.